In a granite quarry in Aswan, Egypt, there is a stone monolith, 137 feet long, 1,200 tons. It never left, never was raised, never was finished. The official story: Egyptians carved it by hand with Dolerite balls weighing 12 pounds each, one strike at a time. But when engineers stood over this stone with measuring instruments and ran the numbers, the story stopped making sense. Not because of magic, because of tool marks, marks that shouldn't be there. When I first saw photographs of those marks and understood what the numbers actually meant, I couldn't breathe for a moment. This so completely breaks the standard picture that I didn't want to believe it. If this investigation pulls you in, hit like and subscribe. That's the best thing you can do for this channel. This is Brain Horizon. We don't build mystery, we prove it. Let's dive into this together. The Aswan Quarry is where ancient Egyptians sourced granite for 3,000 years. Obelisks for Karnak, Pharaoh statues, sarcophagi, all from the same red Aswan granite, one of the hardest natural materials on Earth. And right here, still in the bedrock, never moved, lies what should have been the largest obelisk in Egyptian history, commissioned by Queen Hatshepsut, 18th dynasty, around 1478 BC. Wait, this matters. I want you to hold on to this detail. We're not talking about a mysterious object of unknown origin. We're talking about a project with a named client, a date, a purpose, and tool marks that still read like text carved into the granite. Those tool marks are the central question of this investigation because they don't fit the official story. The largest monolith that doesn't exist, 137 feet and 3 inches. That's how long this obelisk would have been if it had been finished. For comparison, the tallest surviving Egyptian obelisk in the world, the Lateran obelisk, stands today in Rome. It's 105 feet tall. Hatshepsut's was meant to surpass it. Weight between 1,168 and 1,200 metric tons. That's more than 4 fully loaded Boeing 747s. It lies exactly where the carving began, in the rock, 30 meters from the bank of the Nile. Most Egyptian obelisks are far from where they were born: Rome, Paris, London, New York. Their production methods are educated guesswork. This one never left. It froze mid-process, like a photograph of stopped time. This is where you see things preserved nowhere else. Red ochre layout lines, the workers' cutting guides, cross-cut trenches separating the monolith from the bedrock on all sides. And the most important thing, the tool marks. You know what struck me hardest when I first found photographs of those marks? Not the scale, not the weight. It was how identical they are. Uniform, repeating, as if someone moved along the entire length of the monolith with the same tool, again and again. I felt something cold physically move through me, because Dolerite balls don't work that way. Physically cannot. We'll get to those marks in a moment. But first, why did Hatshepsut need a monolith this size at all? Hatshepsut ruled Egypt for more than 20 years. Documented fact, confirmed by inscriptions in her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari in Luxor. But her position was fragile. She was a woman on the pharaoh's throne, in a culture where the pharaoh was, by definition, male. Her stepson Thutmose III remained formal co-ruler. For her, obelisks weren't decoration. They were political instruments. At Karnak, her obelisks already stood, around 97 feet tall, each weighing more than 320 metric tons. This one was meant to exceed them, the tallest, the heaviest. Dedicated to the god Amun-Ra, the official justification carved in stone, "May my name rise above all pharaohs." Most people hear that and think, okay, ambition, got it. I get it. That's exactly what I thought at first. But look at the engineering challenge. 1,200 tons of solid granite doesn't just need to be carved. It then needs to be loaded onto a barge, transported 140 miles down the Nile, and raised vertically. That raises a question official Egyptology prefers not to answer directly. What tool makes any of this possible? In 1921 and 1922, Egyptologist Reginald Engelbach, chief inspector of antiquities for the Egyptian Antiquity Service, conducted the first systematic study of the Aswan quarry. His book, The Problem of the Obelisks, was published in 1923. Notice that word. Problem, not technique, not secret. Problem. Engelbach found thousands of dolerite balls throughout the quarry. Dolerite is a volcanic rock, slightly harder than granite. Workers shaped it into round hammers, averaging 12 pounds each. The official story: workers stood in carved trenches and methodically pounded the granite, removing it layer by layer. This is not speculation, this is documented. But here's what's also documented. Modern experimental archaeologists reproduce this process. One worker with one dolerite pounder removes, pay attention, 216 cubic centimeters of granite per hour. 216 cubic centimeters, the volume of roughly one drinking glass per hour of granite. One worker, one glass of granite per hour. To carve this obelisk by the official method alone would require hundreds of thousands of such hours, just to separate it from the bedrock, before polishing, before transport. This isn't speculation. This is experimental archaeology, documented. So wait, this is exactly where the story starts to break down. The research group Megalithic Builders used photogrammetry to precisely analyze the Aswan quarry, not mystics, surveyors with instruments. Their calculations, at the rate of 216 cubic centimeters per hour, show that separating this monolith from the bedrock alone would require hundreds of thousands of man-hours. Before polishing, before transport, 40,000 workers, 10 hours a day. That's a full year of labor for one obelisk. Official Egyptology acknowledges this. Egyptians had the workforce and the organizational capacity. Maybe, but here's what official Egyptology doesn't explain. The marks. Not random pock marks, like you'd expect from manual pounding. Uniformly shaped, bowl-like depressions, equal depth, equal diameter, distributed evenly across the stone surface, top to bottom along the entire 137-foot length of the monolith. Engineer Christopher Dunn documented them in his book, The Giza Power Plant, published in 1998. His conclusion: this shape cannot be left by a hand tool. Physically cannot. They don't teach this in schools, but it's a verified fact. Take a dolerite ball 6 inches across and strike it against granite. What do you get? A point impact, irregular, unique in shape, like any hand strike. Now look at what we see in Aswan. Bowl-shaped depressions, stable depth, stable diameter, smooth edges. These are called scoop marks. The official position, also dolerite balls, just a special technique. When I understood what that actually meant, I didn't feel wonder. I felt something closer to frustration, not anger, frustration. Because the official museum sign next to the obelisk explains the dolerite balls in detail, the scoop marks aren't mentioned at all, as if they aren't there, even though you're standing right in front of them. Engelbach's 1922 fieldwork remains the foundational source to this day. In 100 years, no one has published a systematic engineering explanation for why the scoop marks look the way they do. Christopher Dunn proposed a hypothesis, a tool with rotational movement, a pivoting lever with an abrasive tip, unproven, but physically consistent with the marks. Academic science never accepted his version and never refuted it. Here's what matters. Official science doesn't say Dunn is wrong, it simply stays silent. Since 1922, or over 100 years, not one Egyptologist has published an engineering explanation for why the scoop marks look exactly as they do. This isn't a conspiracy, it's an open question that no one seems in a hurry to answer. They don't teach this in school, but it's a verified fact. That's where the real engineering mystery of this place lives. The deeper we investigate these anomalies, the harder they become to ignore. If investigations like this pull you in, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment. Which explanation feels more convincing to you? Dolerite balls are a mechanical tool? I genuinely want to know what you think. Within all of this, there are things documented beyond any argument, and they're remarkable on their own terms. First, quality control. Work was halted because of a crack discovered mid-process. Not a pharaoh's death, not a war. The workers identified a structural flaw and stopped. That's quality control, 1,500 years before the Common Era. Second, layout. Red ochre lines survive on the stone's surface, a working coordinate system for the craftsman. Precise. They knew where to cut to the millimeter. Third, labor organization. The pattern of marks shows that each team occupied a defined position along the trench, their own zone, their own pace, their own section. The monolith lies in Aswan's Northern Quarry, roughly half a kilometer from the Nile. No security around it. Most tourists walk along the wooden pathways above and take photos. But if you stand next to it, you understand something photographs don't capture. It is enormous. Not large, enormous. A scale that has no analogy in modern single-object construction. Down arrow. All of this made by people who had no metal tools in any sense we would recognize today. Let's accept the official story on carving. Dolerite balls, hundreds of thousands of man-hours, organized labor. Now the next problem, move a 1,200-ton monolith from the quarry to the Nile, then 140 miles downriver to Luxor. In 2023, a paper appeared in Scientific Reports, a Nature Publishing Group journal, by Egyptian researchers from Cairo University. Authors Atef Saleh, Hazem El-Yanwar, and colleagues reconstructed the transport and erection process for an obelisk with engineering calculations. Their conclusion, for obelisks up to 300 tons, wooden sledges wetted with water and human pulling force worked. That's physically explainable. But 1,200 tons is a different order of magnitude. Moving a monolith this size across the ground would require approximately 8,000 people simultaneously, just to get it moving. 8,000 people, simultaneously, just to move the stone. Not deliver it, not load it onto a barge, just move it from its starting position. This comes from a peer-reviewed 2023 study in Scientific Reports, a Nature Publishing Group journal. This is not speculation. This is documented. Most people say, well, Egypt had a massive workforce. Agreed, but here's one more detail. Egyptian barges from Hatshepsut's era are estimated to have carried up to 700 tons. Depictions of obelisk transport survive in the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari, but those depictions are stylized. Precise engineering data on how a 1,200-ton monolith was loaded onto a barge simply does not exist. This is not speculation. This is documented as an open question. In the debate over the Aswan tool marks, there are two camps, not scientists versus conspiracy theorists, two camps of people who think in engineering terms. The first, traditional Egyptologists. Dolerite balls explain everything. Labor organization, timescale, team specialization, nothing impossible. The second, engineer researchers, Christopher Dunn, Brian Forster, and others. Scoop marks are incompatible with hand tools. A mechanical system is required. The official museum version says one thing, but if you look at the actual data, the shape of the marks, their uniformity, the absence of random pockmarks alongside them, the data says something slightly different. That doesn't mean aliens or lost civilization. It means we have physical evidence and we have a theory of its origin. And those two things remain unreconciled. 100 years in, still unreconciled. That's exactly why the unfinished obelisk matters more than all the finished obelisks in the world combined. It shows the process, not the result. The unfinished obelisk is not a mystery. It's a documented object, with a named client, a creation date, and physical tool marks still readable on its surface. The official version answers some of the questions, not all of them. Here's what I know for certain. The people who began carving this monolith 3,000 years ago knew exactly what they were doing. They had a layout system, a quality control system, a labor organization that any modern construction foreman would respect. Somewhere between the Dolerite balls and the scoop marks, the real answer exists, one we haven't found yet, or one that was found but never officially accepted. Next time someone tells you ancient people built just with their hands, you know what to say. And here's what I still can't stop thinking about. If the scoop marks have gone unexplained by official science for 100 years, what exactly is being left unasked? Write it in the comments. I genuinely want your interpretation. If this video gave you something new, hit like. It helps us keep investigating. And subscribe. There's a lot more ahead that doesn't get talked about. Down arrow. This was Brain Horizon. Now you know what others don't. Until next time.